first, I talked about finding a tenant. For us to find a tenant,
Sorry.
that's okay.
Sorry.
For us to find a tenant,
Chasing him down. All right. Sorry.
That's all right.
I'll hold him so he doesn't do that. The joys of being at home, right?
Right? Always.
Here he is. He's
oh, look at him. Just a big baby.
He is a baby too. So part of our problem. I apologize.
That's all right. So the number one thing we do when we're finding a tenant is we put the property in MLS as a rental. And as agents, it's super easy for us to do. It's just like inputting a regular single family listing. And you can put in, you know, all the pictures and everything. And the thing I love about MLS is that, you know, as an agent, it's a system that I know, and it allows me to put the information where I think it should go and where it makes sense, so that like, whereas if I'm dealing with like Zillow or Realtor.com or something, like they ask me like in weird ways where I want stuff to go, and yet in MLS it's exactly the same as a single family home listing. And so when I put it in there, I try to put in the criteria for me that's exactly what I want, and that is I typically am looking for an 18 to 24 month lease. And so I ask for it right up front. I'm sure it excludes some people, or some people might shy away, but I've found in the current market that like everybody just asks if they, like I had somebody call me today and ask about going down to a 1 year lease rather than 18 months, which is what I was at, or 16 months or something I was asking for in MLS. And I was doing that because the property is available January 1st, and I didn't want it to be available January 1st next year. I wanted it to be available like April or May or something like that. So I put in my most ideal circumstances. I'm also very upfront in MLS about requiring first month rent, last month rent, a $500 security deposit, and a $250 pet fee. And it's $250 per pet. And that's just what we do. A couple of my good investor clients do different things. And I think it's, you know, it's kind of like doing taxes. Like it just depends on whether you talk to an accountant or an attorney, and or how many accountants you talk to about how many different opinions you get on different things. So for us, I like having prepaid rent so that I can use it if they don't pay. If they miss a month in the middle, then I can use that as payment for their rent, and I still have a security deposit. Some people will go with like they'll do like a $3,000 damage deposit, and in my mind I was thinking of a $2,500 a month rental. So if I charge a $2,500 last month prepaid rent versus somebody else charging $3,000 damage deposit, what I have been told is that I can't use prepaid rent to pay for damages, and I'm not supposed to pay for some, or use somebody's damage deposit as as rent that goes unpaid. Okay, so that's what I've been told. So I take it as truth, right? And it's worked for us. And you know, in certain cases along the way where we've had like less qualified tenants, or a tenant that, for whatever reason, we're just like kind of flexing on our criteria for them, or they, maybe they're starting a new job or something like that, but have cash, then we'll take first and last 2 months rent up front. And that way I have 2 months of prepaid, 2 additional months of prepaid rent. If we get 3 months into a lease and all of a sudden they're not paying, then I have that prepaid rent as a, something to fall back on. I mean, knock on wood, I've run into like one, I should say, I think I've had two bad tenants in 10 years. And one of them wasn't bad. Like, I mean, I still feel bad for him. It was a Section 8 tenant, and they just didn't have any money. And then and the work was never like happening, and they didn't take very good care of the house, and it just wasn't a good fit after a while. A lot of kids, so there was like a lot of wear on the house. And still like super good people, but just didn't work. The other one was one where I flexed my criteria, and I still don't know why I did it, but like I just accepted him even though he had really bad credit, had a bad track record, was like a self-employed person, and like, had family money. Well, the saving grace on that was I got his dad as a co-signer on it, and I literally had to CC his dad in on every single communication, because anytime I needed money, I had to like throw it in the dad's face, like, hey, I'm not paid yet, you need to pay me. And then like dad was always like good about catching him up, but that guy left the house just trashed. So I mean, there was probably like $5,000-6,000 worth of damage in the house, which sucked. But I mean, it kind of goes along with it's like one of those things that happens. So getting back on track with putting it in MLS, MLS then syndicates out to all of the Zillow, family tree of all their different little websites and stuff, hot pads and Zumper and apartments.com and all these different things. So when it syndicates out to all those different places, I typically see most of my leads come from Zillow, but then like I'll get like batches of leads from these other sites. So I don't know if it's like if it's like a delayed syndication to those other sites or what. But inevitably, though, it's those other sites. Like I end up getting of all the leads I get, probably half or more of our rental, like our tenant placements, end up coming from Zillow or some other affiliated site. So I used to put our properties in Craigslist. I no longer do that for no other reason than I haven't had to. If I was a non-realtor landlord looking for my own tenants, I probably would do that. Actually, and one of my good clients does that. It's like exclusively, and he just gets bombarded with inquiries. He's at a different like rent demographic than we are, and ends up kind of catering to a different clientele. But the I think it's equally effective. I think you can do it. Like there's a shortage of available properties, enough of a shortage of available properties for rent that that I think you can be pretty flexible in what you're putting it in. We have one other property that's down by the University of Minnesota, a big duplex, and that property we pay something. It's like College Pads, I think, is the name of the place, and they're like a national student housing like directory almost, and like it links directly to the U of M's off-campus housing, like the link from the University of Minnesota. It like, I don't know, whatever. I think I pay I don't know, $300 to $500 or something like that per listing, and it's like annually to get my listing to show up there. And like literally all of our leads come from that. So I would say Tara's, my wife, sorry, is we've got a couple properties that we rent short-term. They're furnished short-term rentals. And if we weren't dealing with COVID stuff right now, we would most likely be doing them almost exclusively on Airbnb. With that being with that not being a thing right now, we've got it. It's like this site that's like short stays or long stays or something like that. And it basically is a source for traveling nurses to find housing in different areas. So we put those properties in there, and we get good response there too. There's like an actual real market for that. So one of our tenants in our two places there is currently from there. So so I said I generally offer $500 payout to agents who bring us a tenant, and I keep that at $500. If you go in and look at rentals in MLS, you'll see that people are offering like 10% of 1 month's rent, or like, maybe a couple $100, or maybe $100 or $120 or something like that. And the thing I've tried to do with it is I want to incent agents to bring their clients to my property. And like, I don't want them to choose something else just because somebody else is paying a little bit more. So I've kept it at 500, and all the agent has to do is show the house and send me a completed application. And if they didn't send me the completed application, I would still pay them as long as they connect me with the person who ends up being the ultimate tenant. And I'd say 1 in 5 homes we rent has another agent involved other than Leah. Leah typically shows our rentals, and I pay her directly for getting those tenants in there. And maybe 1 out of 5. It might not even be that many. It might be 1 out of 8 or 10. We really don't have that many other agents involved.
Eric?
Yeah.
So when you say, so you list them on the MLS and you just let that naturally syndicate. So you don't put it on Zillow. You just let the natural process of what the MLS does.
Yes.
Syndication wise happen. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I actually wouldn't even know how to start doing that. So I have to get Amy involved. So when I've done that, I've not had a problem getting the phone to ring. Okay. Like it just hasn't been a problem. In the past, when the market was a little bit different, I found that by playing with the rent amount, like it's just like listing a single family home, like the rent amount makes a difference. So if I've got it listed at 2,500, I'll drop it to 2,425, and all of a sudden I have I have inquiries. So, and I should say that sometimes too, we have situations where the rent isn't high. There's like a gap in demand. And I've had it happen a couple times where maybe we're getting close to the end of a month, and so right now, if using like January 1st as an example, if I had a property available February 1st, I wouldn't even bother putting it on right now. I would wait until maybe at the very end of December and then put it on. Maybe December, January, like not a perfect like a scenario for that, just because it's the end of the year and limited inventory and stuff. But I find that that when tenants are looking at properties, the further out they are, the more selective they're going to be. So if you put one on that was 75 days out, I bet it might take 10 showings to get that property rented. Whereas if you put it on with 40 days out or something like that, I bet it'll take 2 showings or maybe 1, you know, and a lot of our properties, literally it's 1 showing, 1 showing to get it rented. That wouldn't be uncommon for us to have 1 showing to get it rented. So we do have a lockbox on all of our houses. If there are tenants in place, I require prior day notice for any showing. And I'll have MLS set up to auto approve a prior day showing request. And if the tenants are, depending on who the tenants are and how like easy they are to work with, I might restrict the showing times to maybe between like 10 and 5, or I don't even know what would be a good time right now. I don't know if there is a good time right now. Maybe, you know, or I've had them where they're like, well, how about would like 4 to 7 work? And I'll put it in, and like that's the available showing time. And inevitably people kind of figure that out. And most of the time the agents are pretty understanding with tenants in place that you know, they've got to be a little flexible on it. So the reason I auto approve them is because the tenants, I don't want to give the tenants the option to like reschedule showings or like try and shuffle them around. I just try to establish what will work with them. And I say, okay, within that time frame, we will automatically approve them as long as we have prior day notice. And once I set that up with the tenant, that expectation is usually fine. Or even I've done it where like there's no showings between like Sunday and like Wednesday or something like that, just to give the tenants a break, because the last thing you want them to do is get upset and you know, I mean, they're paying to live in the house. I've also I require, it's written into our lease that, and I've got our lease to send out to you guys along with some other information. I have it written into our lease that the tenant has to provide access for us to get it rented to the next tenant, with as long as we give them, I think I say 24-hour notice, but it might say prior day notice. And like they all work with us. We try to keep like a really good working relationship with our tenants. And I mean, as a general rule, I would say most of our tenants are either were homeowners or will be homeowners. They're just not homeowners right now. And that's like speaks to our stock of houses. But and really like the income of our tenants are making a combined family income of, it's typically more than like $125,000 combined family income. So they're fine. Like they're or I should say they're not fine. They're likely to be homeowners soon if they're not already. Okay, so I think that wraps up that section. So the process, and I actually put the process into multiple listing service. And if I were doing it somewhere other than multiple listing service, I think I would still put the process right in right in wherever the ad is. So I say once they've seen the property or have decided they want to submit an application, I send it to them. And it's a 1-page application, asks for some personal information, does ask for social numbers and employer income, you know, some referral information about prior landlords, where they've lived for the last couple of years, that type of thing. And I've found that the application itself is a decent filter. It's kind of like a job application. If somebody couldn't fill out a job application, they're probably not right for the job. And if somebody can't fill out our application and figure out how to get it to me, they're probably not the right tenant for us. So, and we're like, I'm like, I couldn't be much easier. I will give them, or we give them, a copy of the paper application when they're at the property. And I'll text them or email them a copy of a PDF of the application so they can take it home and fill it out that way if they want to too. Otherwise, a lot of times when we give them the paper application at the property, there's plenty of times where they'll just fill it out right on the kitchen counter while we're standing there and take a picture of it, or even hand it to me right there on the spot. And the application, I don't charge anything to take the paper application from them. Some places do, and some places like collect 10 to 15 applications and charge for all those applications. And then they just like, then they'll select a tenant, and then, you know, choose the best one out of that stack and then do that. I don't do it that way. Once they've filled out the application, I will process the applications in the order that they're received. So I get that first application, I'll go through and I'm going to look first. I want to make sure that they have income that covers the rent. And generally, so if a property is $2,000 a month, I just added up for the year $24,000 a year. As a general rule, I need to see $75,000 of family income gross for them to be able to afford that. Okay. Like I said, with most of our properties, like that income qualification hasn't been a real limiting factor for people. And it's something I like. I think that's like the most important thing I look for. If people make money, they generally have an easier time paying rent. It's like we've had circumstances where we've like maxed that number out, like that number gets closer to 40 or 45% of their income, and it just gets harder and harder. And that's when I find like we're all, you know, on a $2,000 house, they'll pay $1,600 on the first, and then they'll say, you know, can you wait till the 15th or whatever for the extra $400? And you know, for the like to make it work for them, I will do that, but that's a pain in the neck, and you don't want to be or you don't want to have to like try and track that down and, you know, remind them, because then they don't send it on the 15th. You have to remind them on the 16th, and then they send it on the 17th. So it's like a bad road to go down when they do that. Okay, so I go through, make sure that their income is proper. I need to see that they have a job history, and if they don't have a job history, I really need to see that they have like assets or just cash in the bank to like live on for 6 months, if that's what it's going to take. And I have had a couple like that are you know, coming into commission jobs or something like that, or like relocating. I had a family move. Actually, I've had quite a few families move here from like Arizona for some reason. They come here and they like didn't have an employment letter. One was, you know, starting like an insurance franchise, and you know, what does he have? Well, he had like $175,000 in cash from an insurance business that he sold in Arizona. Well, all right, that's good. Like we can deal with that. So from there, I search them in the Minnesota courts database, and I would, I'll send that out in the email that I send to all of you. It's a clickable link. It's pa.courts.state.mn.us. And if you just went into Google and just Googled MN PA court, that this thing shows up, and you have to kind of familiarize yourself with how to use it. It's not super tough. I mean, I figured it out. It's like easy enough. And I think, well, that's the best way that I've found to like figure out what people have going on. And I wouldn't start searching friends and stuff like that, or coworkers, because I don't know. I've done that in the past, and it's just like it's like not fair, because like you don't need to know that I got a minor consumption in college, right? Like, and with tenants, I want to know, like I want to know if they're getting into trouble. So I look at them there. I mean, so there's like criminal in there, and then there's also civil. And civil is like where you find like family law and divorces and child, what do they call that? Possession. That's not the right word. That where you find that, and that's all right. Like, okay, there's also a judgment search in there, and you can go in and search to see if they've had any judgments against them. And I have excluded tenants because they have outstanding judgments that that they can't explain. Most of the time when I meet with people who are like serious about getting into the house, I'll ask them, is there anything that I'm going to find that you think would exclude you from being a candidate for this house? Like, just tell me about it now. And if we want to talk about it, that's fine. And most of the time, like, people have told me, like, they'll say, well, you know, I had this kind of crappy divorce, and, you know, there was like my ex-husband like screwed us on the house, so I had this judgment against me for the second mortgage or something, you know, like, all right, well, most of the time there's a reason that people are renting rather than buying, and it might just be like temporary life circumstances, but it's also like life change, like death or divorce or medical. I've run into a lot of medical stuff, where people like just got underwater because of that type of thing. So that's my next step. I check them there. I also do a quick like Facebook stalking of them, and most people have some sort of a presence in social media, and you know, it's fine. I don't know I don't even know what I'm looking for there, and you'll know when you find it if it's not like palatable for you. So every adult in the home needs to complete a background check. And I use a site that's Rental History Reports. I created my own, like I have my own login or whatever, or account, I guess I should say. And so I created that account, and I don't know that it cost me anything to do that. And what it is, though, it's a portal. So anytime I've got a tenant that I want to send the background check to, I just put in their name and email address and the property they're interested in, and click that I want them to pay for the report. So then the system sends them the link to complete the report. The tenant fills it out, pays for it, and then once the report is done, it gets emailed back to me. And that usually is done the next business day. So if one comes in before, like, I don't know, 2 o'clock, it'll be done the same business day. But most of the time it's just done by, like, it'll come back to me at like 8:05 on, you know, the next business day. They're really good about turning them around fast. That does a credit check. It doesn't give me their credit report. It gives them, or it does a credit check on them, and then it attaches a a risk score, and it's graded just like school grades are, A to F. And they show like what the range is. You know, an A grade is like 800 to 850 or whatever the max is or whatever. So they go down and I've found that credit score isn't necessarily the best, like the best determining factor for a tenant's. I just I try to look at their entire picture and make a decision based on that. When the report goes through, it also does like a criminal check, like a nationwide sex offender check. I don't know. It also does some tenant history stuff on there too. So if they've been a tenant for a while, they'll have they may have gone through the system, or the system has some way of checking to see if they have any like derogatories from previous landlords. And that's kind of the last piece. When that comes through as satisfactory, and it doesn't tell you it's satisfactory, you have to make a decision. It just sends you the report, and I look it over and I'll say, okay, well that looks satisfactory. So when that comes back, then we move forward to a lease. And ours has evolved over the years. I'll attach one of our most recent ones to the email that I send out. And I say that it's evolved because we just keep adding things as we run into different things. And like I know landlords that rent in college areas, like they have party clauses and stuff like that. I don't have that in ours because we don't, I mean, it just hasn't become a thing for us. But in ours, it specifically excludes their use of fireplaces. We found that our insurance our insurance companies will cancel our insurance if they find out that we're letting tenants use fireplaces. So, okay, we stopped doing that. Didn't know about it until it came up one time. We also are we make our tenants in charge of the lawn care, snow removal. Tenants pay all utilities at our properties, with just like an exception or two. Like they pay the gas and electric and the city water bill. We typically stay on top of that city water bill pretty tight too. And then we're how are we labeled? We're labeled as as the owner on all those different accounts too. So a lot of times we'll get mirror bills if an account goes unpaid for more than a month or two. The utility company will actually send the bill to us so that we're aware of it, and then we can go back and talk to the tenant. I mean, it's not a big deal with electric or gas. Because ultimately the tenant is personally responsible for that, but that sewer bill, or the water and sewer bill, the utility bill from the city, that's actually attached to the property, and that'll run with the property, so that'll come back to us. So sometimes we get threatened by the cities that they're going to attach it as an assessment to our property. So we just trying to stay on top of that. I mean, shouldn't make it out to be anything more than that. It's just something that we watch. We do tailor the lease to the type of property, single family, condo, townhome, just so that it's crystal clear to the tenant exactly what needs to happen. I've found that most of our tenants are pretty conscious about stuff too, just about making sure that they're following the rules and like they want to have a good relationship. I also included in our lease a section that is a monthly rent. What do I call it? It's like I originally did it to combat or as a way to fight against people who were offering rent to own. And like 10 years ago, people were offering homes on rent to own, and it was like highway robbery because the tenants just got screwed. And it was like they'd pay like a big down payment, and then it was like a guaranteed sale type of deal. Well, 3 years later, when they finally got approved for a loan, the house is worth like 30% more than they agreed to pay for it. Not saying that it can't be done in a fair way. I just found that a lot of times it wasn't. So as a way to combat that, I gave them a rent credit, and for every month of on-time paid rent, I'll give them $100 toward the purchase of their next house, up to 50% of the total commission on the property. Okay, so how it works is at the end of their lease, they've lived there for two years. So now I've got $2,400 I'm giving them as a purchase credit on their property. They have to buy the property through me or my team. And what I do is I take the commission that comes in, if it's a $200,000 property, to keep the math simple for me here, $200,000 property, it's a $5,400 commission. They've lived with me for 2 years. That's $2,400. So I contribute $2,400 of my $5,400 commission. I'll give that to them. It goes on the settlement statement. It goes direct to them to pay toward their closing costs or as principal reduction on their purchase. Okay. Sometimes their lenders won't let them use it as for their closing costs, or even their down payment. They really don't like it as a down payment, but we're typically able to work it in, and we've always been able to work it in, I should say. And it's always been on the settlement statement. So it's all legal and everything. A couple things that does. I mean, it creates business for our real estate sales business. It also, I think it endears the client to us and to the property. They want to give it back to us in good condition so that we've got a good relationship and it's not weird when we go to give them this money. We've had, I don't know, I've probably had 10 or so clients do that. And I mean, it's outstanding. When it works, it really works. And for the times that it doesn't work, I mean, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, it's just a thing. But 10 transactions, the highest being one guy they bought like a $650,000 house from me, which, I mean, that's what, $15,000 more than that commission, which was awesome. I mean, total win. I bet we've probably netted over 50 grand, probably a lot more than that, just selling these houses. So selling to people who've been tenants. So it is good. Once the background check comes back and we move forward to the lease, I have them electronically sign the lease, typically through AuthentiSign. And then in the lease, we require that all payments are made electronically. Okay. And we give the suggestions of Venmo, Zelle, PayPal. They can deposit directly to my Wells Fargo business accounts, and that works pretty well. Like, even if they just take cash into the Wells Fargo and then take a picture of the deposit slip showing the deposit into my account and then text me the picture. Some people choose to do it that way. The electronic payments have changed my life. I mean, they really have. Like, I no longer have to wait for checks in the mail and just mail period, a holiday or whatever. Like, all that stuff just doesn't slow things down anymore. So on the first of the month, I like my cash register sound on my phone is zinging off the hook because people keep hitting me up on Venmo, and it's perfect. Like I just go in, I can see it, transfer it over to my other account, and empty out that Venmo account, and that's like been the probably the biggest game changer. And yesterday, the middle of the month already, and finally I've got one tenant that pays me in the middle of the month because they're old and they've lived with us for a long time, and I just like them, so I deal with their stuff. She figured out how to use Zelle yesterday, and that was my last relic, like that I was still on the old system. So I'm super pumped. That means everybody's paying electronically now. Huge game changer for us. So next, we do a move-in walkthrough, and up until 6 months ago, that move-in walkthrough has looked like a move-in walkthrough has looked for the past 50 years or maybe longer, where my wife met them at the property. She walked them through the house. They looked at the condition together. My wife tells them that this is the condition that we expect the home to be delivered in. She has a checklist of stuff. So if there's stuff that the tenant wants to mark on the checklist, they can. Like if there's marks on the wall or carpet stain or whatever, like they can mark it down so that it's documented, which is great. Like, I mean, totally gives them buy-in. And then, then they go through and my wife will show them how to shut off the water, which is the very most important thing, how to reset the circuit panel or reset breakers, and I don't even know what else she does. She does other stuff. Also how to turn on the furnace, how to work the thermostat. Don't turn on the AC in the winter. Had that happen last year. That's sweet. We bought a brand new air conditioner because of that. Guy from North Carolina turns on the air conditioner in February because it's too hot in the house. And they can burn up when you do that. And so now she is putting together a library of videos house by house that's a move-in video for the house. So now it's going to be archived. We've got it in our Dropbox account, and it's Tara walking through the house, and in 2 minutes she has a video that tells people everything they need to know about the house, and they can refer back to it, shutting off the water spigots in the winter, like how to do that, how to drain them, where they are, all those things, like the things that the people need to know and they wouldn't necessarily know. Our expectation, and she's done that now for I think 3 different properties, and the tenants like it, because the last thing they want to do is spend a half hour with us when they're trying to move in, because we used to do it like on the first, as they're moving in, Tara shows up and has to walk through it with them for a half hour, and they want to move and they want to clean and they want to do whatever, get on with life. So this is great. They get a chance to look at it whenever they want to, and we've got it so we can send it to them again as a reminder. They can look at it. A great way to just follow up on that. So that's something we just did. So as a follow-up to that, we also then do at the end of the lease, assuming that they're moving out, at the end of the lease, we'll do a 30-day out walkthrough. And typically that Tara does that with them, and she'll just walk through the house. And when she walks through the house, she's looking for any damage. And she tells the tenant what any of the damage items are, and that if they correct them, that they won't be charged for them. And we've had tenants do a bunch of stuff, like to make the house right. And by doing that, we found that they typically return the house to us in better condition than they would if we weren't doing it. It also eliminates like that kind of weird circumstance when you get to the end of it and they move out and you come in and you're like, well, the range door is broken, and they're like, well, we didn't know about that, and we don't want you to pay your contractor to come over and fix it. Like we want to do that. Well, all right, there's your opportunity. Things like replacing a cracked piece of glass. Like, broken windows happen, right? Kids are in the house and stuff happens. Well, if we tell them up front, like, that they can take that window and take it over to the hardware store, and the hardware store will replace the glass for like $30. That is a lot better for them than paying us $250 to have somebody come out, pull the window, take it over, get it replaced, take it back, and like, if you have somebody else do it, it's going to cost money. So giving them that chance. And I mean, certainly some of them just like, well, whatever, just charge us or just use the deposit and we'll move on. It's fine. But at least giving them that choice, I think it leaves a better relationship in the end. Gosh, I had something else that I was thinking of along the lines of, so we talked about going to have them move out. We have plenty of people who, as they near the end of their lease, they are looking to extend. And I'm not as strong as some landlords are about increasing rent on tenants who are staying in a property. In fact, like, I've gotten behind, and actually, like, a great thing, we have some tenants who've been in, we have one family who's been in one of our houses for 9 years now, and they're like nearing the end of their third 3-year lease. And the beautiful thing is that he actually does a bunch of repair work, and they've been like renovating the house while they're there, and they ask us, and we give them like a little rent credit to do something, like they painted the interior and painted the exterior, all this stuff. And the bad part is that with them being on 3-year leases, like, their rent is massively below market. So to the point where, like, they're paying us $19.50, and if we put it on the market, I bet we put it on at like $2,500. So that's like significant, right? And we haven't had to turn over the house. We haven't repainted. We were going to replace the carpet before they moved in. They had a couple dogs, so they didn't want us to replace the carpet. So we've been like getting away with this for a long time on that house. So point is, when we have somebody nearing the end of their lease, they need to give us 60-day notice if they're moving out. And what I do is I send them a message, probably 75 days out. I send them a message, maybe even 90 days out. I'll send them a message and ask them what their intentions are. And then, and that they need to get back to me within that, or outside of that 60-day period. So, if they're leaving in July, then they need to tell me before, what is that? July, June. In May, they need to tell me by the end of May that they're moving out. So in preparation for that, I'll send them a message and say, hey, thanks for your business. We really appreciate you being a great tenant. You've been awesome to work with. And our rents for 2021 are going up a little bit. The rent will be $25.75 or something like that, like at whatever the increase is, and then ask them to get back to us by a certain date in order to either go forward with the lease or, and so I typically, depending on who the tenant is and how much of a relationship we've had, I'll either call them and talk to them about that, or I'll just send them the email. Some of them we just don't have that kind of relationship where we're talking. So I just send them the email and they get back to us and let us know what we want to do. A lot of times when they're extending, they will ask for something to be done, like a repair request or even like a remodel request, and we can address it at that time. Most of the time, the things that they ask for are like good maintenance issues anyway, or maintenance items. And, we want the houses to be in good condition, and they are. I mean, we renovate them before we turn them into rentals. So by and large, they're in good condition anyway, but that usually spurs that conversation. So the last thing. So we do require that the lease is signed. As soon as we send it, they need to sign it. They can review it and they need to sign it. If they don't sign it within, I'll say like within 24 hours, I'm looking for another tenant. There's no like, we're not taking like a week to think about this or 2-3 days. Like, you need to sign it if it's coming through. The next thing is they need to understand that their deposit is due at the time of lease signing. And I say that up front, and I put that in MLS or anywhere else that it's advertised, that the payment, full payment is due at the time of lease signing. And I have gotten burned on that, and that's why I'm like a stickler on it now. Because I think we talked about it before, but if somebody has a problem with the down payment or like needs to collect more money or something like that, there's underlying issues and they don't have the money. So they're probably not going to be a good tenant. We've found that by requiring it right up front, we don't make exceptions on it either. Like, you can't pay half now and then like another $2,000 later. Like, we just don't do that. And that's eliminated issues for us. And that's first and last month's rent, and the damage deposit and the pet fee. So a lot of times it's like $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. And most of the time everybody's fine. The issue that comes up is people like run into maxes on Zelle and Venmo, and I'll have them do like, like where they'll do 500 on Zelle and 500 on Venmo and 500 on PayPal, and then deposit more at Wells Fargo directly to my account, and like whatever. Like, you can tell if somebody is like fighting to get money into your pocket, and that's fine. Last thing. Well, are there any questions on anything that I've talked about?
I actually have a question here. So when you talked about the rent to buy contract,
Yeah.
so is it usually done like at the beginning of the lease? Like, they know they're gonna buy the house like within like 3-4 years?
Typically on other people's rent to own contracts, yes, that's how it's done. And people, tenants a lot ask me, well, will you do rent to own? And I'll say, no, I'm not going to sell you this house because this one's my house. Like, I've done, like, and I don't tell them this, but I've done too much to make that house exactly what I want as a rental. I don't want to like let it slip away. Okay. So what I tell them though is, no, I'm not going to sell you this house, but what I will do is I will give you a rent credit. And then I describe how the rent credit works. It's $100 a month of on-time paid rent. You can use it to buy any house anywhere in the state of Minnesota. as long as you use somebody from my team to buy it, and we'll give that to you. And that's typically enough to get them past it.
Oh, okay, so it's not like your exact house, but you're just offering like reduction in your commission.
Correct, correct. And it is, and you're right, it's a commission contribution. Okay. And what I would say, and you're not a realtor, correct?
Me,
Yeah.
I am a real estate agent.
Oh, you are. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Krista, are you not the agent?
I'm not an agent.
Correct. All right. Sorry. I knew we had somebody on that wasn't an agent. That's why I said that. So if you are the agent, then absolutely. Like, I mean, ask any agent, like, hey, will you go sell a house and pay a 20 to 25% referral fee to somebody? Like, yeah, we'll sign up for that all the time. That's fine. Like, whatever. Like, let's just go find you a house. And if you're not an agent, Krista, I would absolutely ask your agent if they would be willing to do that for you and contribute part of their commission toward the buyer as a credit, as a free, like a free transaction, like a free to them transaction. I mean, without taking on a marketing cost or anything. And your agent may end up being frustrated with me for saying that, but and you know what? I've talked to my investors about it, and absolutely, you know, if my clients want to send me referrals, and you know what, there's a small referral fee attached to it, then that's fine. Like it's cool. Like, let's just go find them a house. I mean, it's what we do anyway. So yeah, that works well.
Just
Yeah.
follow question. So why would people do rent to buy contract? Like, why would the homeowner as a realtor offer them that option? Like, if they, had spent like, a number of hours finding the exact house that they wanted to rent.
I don't think I understand what you're saying.
So, in your case, you don't offer that rent to own contract to other people. But in some cases, you said, they do offer that option, right, to tenants.
Yeah.
And why would they do that? Like, if they bought that house for rental, then why would they sell it?
Yeah. Some people, some sellers or some owners view that as an exit strategy. And what I've found is that they typically, and like I said, when I was talking about it, it's typically very not consumer friendly, like not buyer friendly. It's heavily weighed in the investor's favor. So that's why I would say, like, absolutely look at, if you ever run into one, look at the contract, and or even if you look at Home Partners of America, and if somebody uses them, that's awesome, great. I'm glad you have a good experience. I've looked at what they do, and I think it's borderline criminal how awful the deal is for the tenant or for the consumer. And it's like to the point where I think it's almost like I'm surprised a little bit that it's like legal, because it's not consumer friendly. And in a society where everything is all about being consumer friendly, like that, it's just not a good deal for them. So I think people would do it as a way to like get out of houses or get their cash out of houses. But then two, like people ask me like, well, would you sell this house? What? Well, not maybe. How much can you pay? Right? Like if you pay me enough, I'll sell any of them. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that. It plays like, in favor of the investors, not the tenants. I thought like the other way around.
Right. Well, like if, yeah, like on any house, like, okay, well, if you pay me market value, no, I probably won't sell it. If you paid me 115% of market value, like, yeah, I'd probably sell it. Right. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So any other questions?
I have a couple.
Yeah.
The primary one that I had was regarding just substantiating the renter or the tenant's financial viability. And you said sometimes you'll require like they can't employment verification to see, substantial amount in a bank account. Do you just request to see a bank statement, or how do you, generally people are pretty reticent to hand over that kind of information.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I just ask. And ultimately they're asking me for something, right? Like they want the house. So with that, then I turn around and say, well, like, I'll be real upfront with them and say like, well, you know what, your income history isn't very good, or isn't what we're looking for, or isn't as strong as we'd like to see. And typically they're pretty forthcoming. If they have money in a bank account, they're pretty forthcoming about that. And I'll say, okay, well, how about you get me your like your offer letter from your employer, or even like your contract. Like people will have a contract that describes how they get paid, and then I'll say, well, send me that, and send me a copy of your, like, a proof of funds that shows me that you actually have this money in an account, and then we can talk about that, or then like we'll review it, and if it looks satisfactory, then we can move forward. Just by asking, like they've been pretty willing to share, and I wouldn't have a problem if they had like blacked out
Oh yeah.
account numbers and stuff. But most of the time people don't even do that. Like I'm like pretty surprised most of the time, like how open people are with me. So
Okay.
yeah.
Second question I have is regarding, now you said you're doing, or your wife is doing, the Zoom overview kind of the checklist at the onset of starting the rental agreement. Do you require, how do you know that the tenant actually watches it and goes through it? Do you?
We don't.
Okay.
We don't. Yeah. No, not yet. So
okay.
It might be something. I'll just write that down.
That's a great idea.
Right?
Something that acknowledgement of
right.
having.
Yeah.
Right.
Derek, do you stay away from, or do you lean towards single family homes versus townhomes? Do you have one that you like better than the other?
We do single family homes. Like pretty much all of our properties are single family homes. And I chose that because it's what I know.
Right.
I'm most familiar with them. With townhomes or even condos, the maintenance goes down a lot, or can go down a lot. And however, that association fee can really eat into your profits. So
so do you pay that?
Yeah, always. And some of the easiest properties to manage though are townhomes or condos, like either way, like they're just simple. And as long as the people don't cause problems within the association, it's super simple, because everything is taken care of by the association, and you don't have to worry about your property becoming like run down on the outside like it might if it were a single family home. So
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? No? Okay, so write down my email address. It's Derek, DARIK @kw.com. And just send me an email and I'll reply back with that. Basically it's like an outline of what we talked about today, but it also has the attachments of the rental application and the sample lease for you guys to get started. Don't hesitate to ask if you've got any questions, and yeah, good luck investing.
Lots of good information. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Have a
Nice
good
to meet
day.
you.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Send that out of it.